Welcome again to Thanks Universe. This is week 3 of lessons learned from building my small business. And this week, I'm actually going to start with having a support system. Your support systems are really important. It's not the relationship to you that matters as much as their relationship with you. So it doesn't matter if it's your friend or your family member or your spouse, as long as the relationship you have with them is of a supporting nature. Not a supporting relationship in terms of blind affirmation to whatever you're doing, but encouragement, support, and maybe telling you hard truths, but also encouraging you that you're able to figure things out. And the reason I'm saying this at the beginning of my lessons learned this week is I was having some serious mental challenges where my mind was being very mean to me. And I recognized this, so I journaled about it. And it wasn't enough. I needed something that I wasn't sure of that I needed. So I pulled my husband aside and I sat down with him and I was like, listen, my thoughts are telling me these things. I know it's not true. Logically, I know that. It's still hurting me, and I'm struggling to find a way to prove my mind wrong, give myself evidence against it. So he sat down with me and we worked through, and he helped me identify what my limiting beliefs were. Um, for example, he helped me realize that I'm able to build a vision big enough to attract people to work with me. And that's a valuable skill. And that leading a team to achieve results requires a lot more than just telling people what to do. And I should lean into these skills and bring more people into my vision because it would be mutually beneficial. We even came up with an idea of adding affiliate marketing to the business as one of like the possible benefits of my talent. I'll definitely have to spend some time thinking to see if that idea fits in with the overall purpose of the business and if it would be a good addition to our strategy or not. But the point is, we got from me being really mean to myself to like identifying limiting beliefs to then flipping it around and even just tossing around ideas for how my strengths could add additional benefits to our business. So that is, I think, probably the most poignant one this week. So I'm just going to jump into a very tactical one. I'm just going to do a 360 or 180 switch here and jump into truck loading. So I also had to get a truck loaded and sent out this week. Nothing I haven't done before, but this time I actually used an app called Variable for the very first time. Apparently, it's been around for 5-ish years. My brother turned me on to it. I really believe it solves a huge gap in the market. And it's a great way to find people to work for part-time positions or like as needed labor without tying people down and not being able to give them a full salary or part-time work, just as needed work. And it allows a lot of flexibility to the people using it when they don't have the ability to maintain a part-time or a full-time job. So it was definitely overall a good experience. It was definitely expensive though. So basically what it does is it connects you with day laborers for tasks you might need to get done. And in my case, as I mentioned, loading a truck. So, my lessons learned here were to be prepared, make sure you hire enough people, and make sure the time requirements are clear. So, usually it's better to hire an additional one or two people in case of no-shows or people trying to leave early. Another thing to be prepared about is actually knowing how much space you have available in the truck or like whatever else you're doing, and know your product sizes so that when you're putting things in, account for the gaps in human error and like it's not going to all fit super compact. So make sure that you are prepared, you know how much space is available, how much your products can fit in there. Give clear instructions to the workers as to what products to load and in what order. And if possible, move the products from the warehouse into the loading dock area before the truck arrives. So that's my hardcore tactical. I'm not sure how much that will resonate with you, but if anyone is in a similar, construction related business, this might be helpful for you. Now, going back into more general business learnings, preparation. The importance of preparation has recently come to my attention very strongly. I realized that I've added prep time recently for our upcoming meetings and trainings into my actual calendar, and it takes a lot more time than I realize. And sometimes it even takes more time than the actual meetings. Now, there's a few different types of things that I prepare for, right? So first is meetings, of course, team meetings, client meetings, progress check-in meetings. All of these require smaller amounts of time, 5 minutes for client meetings to review notes, and up to 20 minutes for team meetings, and progress check-ins to make sure I'm prepared with the agenda and intended problems I want to solve, or the questions I want to ask. Trainings. Recently, I've been spending a lot more time with trainings, both creating written SOPs and video explanations of processes. I also need to create a workbook with examples for the new employees to test doing themselves, like test cases, and make time for live Zoom calls for them to go through their test cases with me to explain their thought process and for me to correct any mistakes either in my example test cases, directions, or their work. This takes much more prep time and online face-to-face time than I could have even imagined. I spent 6 hours just this week working on the written SOPs, not even including the video examples. Another thing that I use for preparation is my calendar. My new Excel time audit calendar planning system, I really should come up with a name for, takes quite a bit of my time. It's not so much the logistics as constantly making sure I'm tackling everything I need to. So it's more that time goes into prioritizing every day and every week. So there's got to be a better way for that, right? So I'm on the lookout for that. And next is context conversations. Context conversations are a whole other beast. I actually do a video anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, but the preparation for this is usually what takes up more of the time because it involves my continued learning, strategic thinking on the business, and my focus on is on how I'm like thinking through things every week, what lessons I'm learning, how I'm condensing that all down to relevant information for the team, how it affects what they're working on. So this can easily be up to 3 hours of prep time that goes into context conversations, which is why I usually do them monthly or bi-weekly. Another thing that I learned this week was networking and making time for people. Do not overcomplicate it and keep it in your system. Whether you do it daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly, just like make sure it's still a part of what you're doing. I'm not in, like, for example, for me, I'm not actively building cold storage facilities right now, but it's still important for me to stay in contact with my key connections from the industry to continue to learn and stay in contact as I plan to get back into it once I establish my current company by getting it to 10 million and bringing in a CEO to continue growing it. So, what I did is I didn't overcomplicate things. Um, I picked a key contact of mine within the cold storage world. Let's call him Ruben. And I made sure it was a reasonable hour in their time zone and within the hours that we had discussed in the past that generally work for them. And I just picked up the phone and gave him a call. Turns out it was a bad time, so he decided he'll give me a call, but call back the next day. We chatted for 30 minutes, caught up with each other, talked about recent industry trends, and said chat with you later. Keeps a contact warm, a relationship fresh, gives you more insight into an industry that you're interested in, and only costs you 30 minutes of your time. Definitely worth it. Another lesson was one of the context conversations I did this week, right? And it was teaching my team about the manager versus the maker schedule. So instead of going in myself and like creating a whole nother video about this, what I did is I linked in the resource I actually learned this from, and then I added a couple paragraphs about my thoughts about this video and how it applies to our business and our team specifically. And the most amazing thing happened. We just started having a conversation on the Monday platform where I posted this video as to their thoughts and their responses. And what ended up happening was when I was preparing for my team alignment meeting, I just looked at all of those conversations, responded to what I could written context on the platform, and picked out key points that I felt needed to be discussed in person in our meeting to add any clarification points or any action items. This was such a sweet way to do context conversations, get the team engaged, and not eat up too much of our time in meetings. One of the final lessons I want to share with you this week is the importance of pricing. Okay, so this one client said he was a big buyer and tried to push down our prices, even our wholesale prices. And before I made the sale, I checked our profit margins, non-existent. So I decided just not to make the sale. And I had three different clients this week, with special pricing requests because they were supposedly big buyers. But the quantities that they pick up at one time are not large enough to be considered wholesale clients. I spent so much time on figuring out these prices and being reactive, and I know that I need to use the market research that I have to standardize my prices for my ideal clients. Even if that takes two whole working days or two whole working weeks, I need to have something that my sales reps and my quote makers can rely on to understand my decision-making matrix on how I am picking pricing based on market trends and the client profile to give them the price that most suits their needs, both in terms of timeline, warranties, and the actual service they are looking for when it comes to their product. So, I need to find a way to not only give the pricing, but explain my decision-making framework around this so that everyone has access to it when creating their own quotes as well. And that is it for this week's lessons learned. And I hope to see you next week in Thanks Universe.